I can tell you one thing, waterboarding really sucks. I would snitch immediately. I know Joe, I can tell you right now, I can crack Keith like an egg.
What's up, everyone? If you are new to the show, welcome. If you've been watching or listening for some time, then you probably have some questions around this episode, since it's an episode that we uploaded a couple seasons back but ended up taking down. On this episode, we spoke with a military investigator who claimed to have performed controversial enhanced interrogation techniques on detainees in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Guantanamo Bay. And we ended up taking the episode down shortly after, just because we felt like there was a bit more vetting and due diligence that we could have done, since the topic isn't something we would typically cover. And to be clear, we always do our best to vet guests as much as possible, and we never want to put out any episode that's just for shock value or may not be true. And since recording that episode, we've received confirmation that the guest was in the military, which included documents, photos, discharge papers. And while it's of course not possible for us to 100% verify the actions that he has claimed to have committed, we decided that we ultimately want to give our listeners a chance to see and hear the episode, and just want to drop that quick disclaimer and explanation. But we're excited for you guys to finally experience the episode and enjoy. Yeah, and we've got our guest on the line today, so thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
And I think thank you especially for your willingness to share details on such a contentious topic. I think it's one that has, obviously sparked a lot of debates over things like human rights, what's considered torture, something that was sort of designed to be secretive. So, having you come on and share these details and this personal experience really means a lot to us. And, we're going to be talking specifically today about your experience as a military interrogator in Afghanistan, Iraq, even Guantanamo Bay, where you used enhanced interrogation techniques on prisoners, not just prisoners, but I would say extremely high value prisoners, those with ties to terrorist organizations, information that could be crucial to the safety of our country, other countries. So I think to start it off, it would be helpful for everyone listening if you could give really just a brief description of what enhanced interrogation techniques means and why it became such a controversial topic when the methods were discovered and made public.
Well, enhanced interrogation, the definition of it is, aside from what would have been a normal Geneva Convention protected interrogation, enhanced interrogations were allowed because shortly after 9/11, it was classified as an act of war. So they were no longer prisoners of war, they were detainees. And that's a key classification on why this is allowed to be used. So enhanced interrogations was a program intended to just extract information quickly, rapidly, and in turn that over to the other agencies for actionable intel. Now, as far as the methods that are used, there's various methods of it. There is stress positioning, hooding, binding and controlled stress positions, deafening noise, sleep deprivation, lack of food, sexual humiliation, either being a female interrogator coming in when they were nude. One thing that was awkward to me, having them watch gay porn, that was a huge no-no to them, and something not many people know about. And then you have your more severe tactics, which weren't used on everyone, but on, like you said, the very high-value targets. You had your waterboarding, confinement in small boxes, lack of sleep with loud noise. So we would have a strobe light set up and play music epically loud, and 20-hour interrogations to the point of just utter chaos. We also would do hypothermia, so we'd let them stand in a cell at 50 degrees. Then we'd crank the heat up a lot higher. Abdomen strikes were approved. The funny thing with this one is they actually asked a doctor what was the best way, and they said a punch could leave internal damage. And then there was slapping them in the face, shaking them, and using a military dog to kind of enhance the fear to get what you needed.
So while you were sort of instructed to do these things, I'm assuming like when you're, in the service, there's not really a hesitation. It's your order to do something and you do it. But did you have this thing in your mind of like, this is a bit much, or did in the moment it feel necessary?
Hearing what they would say back to us and knowing the dossier on this individual, you knew it was necessary to get the information because of what it could lead to. A lot of times you would have someone you didn't quite have, it was a need to know basis. So you knew basic facts of this individual and what you were trying to get from them. Sometimes that was found out later on to be they were bountied over, and they honestly knew nothing. And in the moment, you're just taking orders. I mean, the military does a very good job of turning you into a yes man. This is what I have to do. These are the people that flew planes into my country. These are the people that are plotting attacks daily, killing our soldiers. I need to stop this, and I need to save lives. And if it's going through you to do it, you just go with the program.
So were you aware of the tactics before you were assigned to carry them out? Or, where did you kind of first get tasked with having to do, one of these enhanced interrogations?
You're aware of the tactics. You take it as what the detainee is responding to. You get your orders, obviously, from the person running wherever it is that you're working out of. Early on in Afghanistan, there is a prison in Kandahar. That's public knowledge, so I'm not leaking nothing new. So they were brought there, and it was a prison, and you were told, hey, you need to go in there. We need this information. This is what we think he knows. And from there, you would just carry out your order. As things changed, you would get told from your higher ups, why don't you try this? Why don't you do this? It wasn't always you in the room. Sometimes you would swap out, almost like bad cop, the worst cop. And so, yeah, we were made aware. It was almost immediately drawn up. And it was everybody who was in military intelligence at the time. This was broken down, how it was done. It was demonstrated. I can tell you one thing, waterboarding really sucks. I would snitch immediately. I know, Joe, you say Keith could just withstand it and giggle. I can tell you right now, I can crack Keith like an egg.
I believe it.
It's crazy even just talking to someone who has waterboarded someone. Like it's just that's so common. I think waterboarding, when all of this became public, that just became such a focus of the technique, and so many people now have joked about it or tried it themselves. But
can you explain also the process of waterboarding for people who don't know? Okay,
so that's where it gets unique. So with waterboarding, they're placed on a board, and there's a loop eye at the top, and they're clipped in. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. So if you picture in your mind like an angled ramp, that's basically what a waterboard looks like. So water's poured over a cloth that's covering the face, and they're laying at an angle, so it causes them to experience what is like a form of drowning. So their face is immobilized with the cloth, and the incline, it's a slight incline, about 10 degrees actually. You can Google it and find out. The most important thing is it disrupts that gag reflex, and it's basically called dry drowning. They experience what it feels like to drown without physically drowning.
Wow. And was that like the last resort sort of tactic? It was like, all right, well, if we're not getting information, this is the last resort that we have?
That was used, I'd say, the fewest of anything. And on that, it was people, because early on in Afghanistan, we had a lot of detainees. And this was before they decided that we were going to open Gitmo or Guantanamo Bay. And you were, kind of adapting with the program as it went. I mean, you were blowing through people over and over again. But being that they were detainees, they weren't getting set free. Threats to their family was something that was also used as enhanced interrogation. The worst thing for them was being considered working with us, the Americans. Many of them would rather die than to tell us a single word. So when you had those high value targets that could lead you directly to people such as Saddam Hussein or people who knew the couriers for bin Laden, well, waterboarding was going to be done. Admittingly, there's been 3 people that were waterboarded. In reality, it's upwards of 3 or 4 dozen, I'd say.
Wow. And how effective is it? Like, would you say that, like, what % of the time do you usually get the information that you want when you are using these enhanced tactics?
All of them, or specifically waterboarding?
I guess both.
You get information pretty much all the time. Whether or not it's true, that's the side note. I mean, a lot of times they'll tell you anything just to make it stop. Mm-hmm. And in turn, you tell, you better not be lying to me because you don't want to see me again. The effectiveness rate, in all reality, it wasn't as effective as people thought. The lower level guys, yes, they would break instantly almost. You get 3 days with them, that's it. You're getting the information you need. You move on to the next guy. You go get where they found out. A lot of times it would lead you to a large weapons cache in the town we were in. So you knew right then and there that, thank God, we got this information, or who knows who would have been hurt by all the ammo, computers. I mean, they were very, very spread out. But the higher level guys, what worked better at the end, what I found towards the end of my career there, was if you just built rapport with them, if you controlled everything from their food to their drink, never letting them know what time of day it is, you would just look at your watch and walk away. You kind of mind fuck. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to curse.
Oh, you can curse.
you literally mind fuck them. I remember in one scenario, I walked in the room and it's pitch black. They can see nothing. They have a hood on. They're calling you every name in the book, and you're just like, yeah, but you're tied to a chair. And you look at your watch and say, oh, it's 11 o'clock. And you'd come back an hour later and tell them it was 6 p.m. And it would just completely throw them disoriented. They wouldn't understand what was going on. The sleep deprivation tended to get people to just talk because they wanted you to turn off that bright, hot light. But effective, yes. Did we find out that in the end it was unnecessary? Yes, as well.
So, that's an interesting point that, I think we definitely want to get to, the necessity of all this. But, to just hearing this, and despite, I guess any belief here of, what's necessary, or, if this is pushing it too far, it has to take a toll on you and the people doing this. And it's just hard to imagine even being put in that situation where, you're ordered to carry this out. And when you were performing things like this, does it ever, like, is there a balance you're trying to find in your head of, this person is still a human and maybe we are pushing it too far? Or is it just an order that you have to complete? Is it, this person is dangerous, or this person has information that, can save a lot of other people, and you aren't really even considering, that you're pushing it too far in the moment?
In the moment, you're not really considering, is this going too far? There's a lot of pushback from the detainee. And at the same time, too, there's a lot of pressure to get this information that you need. It wasn't until you know, later in the day that balance kicks in, where sometimes to me, I would just kind of separate myself mentally, because it takes a toll on you. It really does. I mean, at the end of the day, these are people. They're very bad people. They're evil people. They have done horrific stuff that you've seen firsthand just going through the towns. But at the end of the day, you sit there and once you start finding out more and more as the years went on that some of these people were innocent, that's really when you would sit there and be like, I really hope this guy has something. If not, why am I doing this?
There has been. I'm sorry, I was going to say there has been instances where you guys have tortured someone or interrogated someone for days at a time, and they ended up being innocent.
Yeah, you found out that they were bountied over. So the tribal leaders, a lot of the times, were bribed. I mean, you can buy anything in Afghanistan or Iraq. Money makes the world move, and the same goes in war. So you can pay off somebody, but they would give up the wrong person. Now, this person may have just such a slight tie that it's relevant, but later on, you find out, and it wasn't until even, I think it was 2013 when the reports were coming out that people were innocent, or some we were seeing were being released before they were even interrogated. And you're like, well, what if I had him next? That's really what made you start to question the process. But then at the same time, you feel like you're doing a disservice to your country, because if I start to question this process and I don't effectively complete my mission objective here, whose lives at risk? Is the life of one, it's that lifelong question, is one life worth losing to save 1,000? The answer turns out to be yes.
Yeah, I can only imagine that kind of thought process. And you just kind of put it in perspective there, where it's like some of these people could be innocent, but some of them also aren't innocent, and they could be responsible for thousands of people's, lives. During, this process with the interrogations, how long did they usually last on average?
They would lengthen over time or the person. So there's different layers to what was made available to different branches. So, excuse me. You had the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency. You had the CIA there, and then you had the Armed Forces working out of Bagram or Guantanamo Bay. So, depending on whom, I guess it is, sent you the person, depended on really what the mission objective was going to be. They could last, to answer your question, because I was just trying to do some quick math. Initially, you start your interrogation process before you ever speak to them. So there could be days of a strobe light before they ever said a word, because the minute they're captured, they try to get instant intel. I mean, there's some, props to our special forces. They're some of the scariest people I've ever met in my life. And they'll try to get something now before they bring a detainee in, obviously. So, you've got to set that psychological warfare up first. And then typically, an interrogation can last up to 20 hours in a single day. And then they would be put there, not let sleep, brought back in, and it could be the same amount of time.
Was there anything in particular, in your experience, that you either witnessed or performed that, really stuck with you or was hard to shake?
Yes. The being bound in the stress positions designed to put pressure or weight on just certain muscles. So they'd be literally chained in a position that strained their calves, or, just literally basically like if you did a wall squat, but being forced to do it because your arms is suspended over your head. Seeing people getting permanently crippled from it, from trying to fight their way out, that bothers you. There's a lot of them that commit suicide. Before you can even get to them, you find them dead. And you're like, is this cause worth these people taking their own life? Like, why? You know, they come here, they've been here, and they just would rather die than talk. And that just leads you further down the rabbit hole of whom this person is. And in some cases, this person just did it because they just didn't want to be there.
Yeah. Specifically, I'm curious too. I know, there's still so much mystery around Guantanamo Bay, and so many, I feel like, cases brought up against it of, just it's in constant violation of, human rights. Are you able to talk a little bit about, your time there and what went on?
Yeah, in Guantanamo Bay, I agree with that statement. Guantanamo Bay was not where you wanted to be. It was extremely hot. The problem you had at Guantanamo Bay is it wasn't as controlled an environment as were some of the military prisons or black sites that you had access to. Guantanamo Bay is right there wide open. So the use of military dogs when they're tied to a chair, and I mean, this is no friendly household pet. You would have them on a chain just barking at their cages. People took it too far that were in charge of just guarding that prison. As far as who was sent there, I wouldn't say they were all the worst of the worst. Some of the people in Guantanamo Bay may still be in Guantanamo Bay. They say they shut it down, but I haven't seen it. And the ones that get let out, they tell violations I honestly didn't even know happened there. You're in such a controlled space. They control every aspect of your life, and rightfully so. It's the U.S. military. So you're separated, obviously, from all this, and you just come in and you perform your task and your job. And it's just a matter of you sit there sometimes, and it's been 2 weeks, and this guy's intel has come back just fake. They're just making up names. They're just full of shit. And you're just like, what the hell is going on here? And the living conditions, they weren't given prayer mats. They weren't given things that, if done to me, would have pissed me off, but at the time seemed necessary. Taking them out of their comfort zone. So
when all those reports were coming out about all these things, did you kind of see that and go, damn, it's fucked up over there? Or, was there a clear difference between, all the other places this was going on and Guantanamo Bay? Was that one like the worst, or was it pretty standard throughout?
It was pretty standard, to be honest with you. I know everybody's seen the pictures from Abu Ghraib prison where they were piling people up for selfies and crap like that.
Yeah.
Those were the kinds of things you weren't really privy to. You weren't hanging out with these people. So there wasn't really any single site that was going to be like, this is the white collar jail for you.
Right.
Yeah. I know, I know it's a different mentality and one personally that we don't understand, having, never served or been in the military, of, following orders and doing what's necessary. But at any point, do you feel that it's unfair that you were the one who got chosen for this work? Because in a way you're carrying out someone else's orders, and in your case to a really extreme degree, where now your orders are to inflict this pain, the psychological warfare, constantly, that's taking a toll on you. So do you ever feel like it's do you ever ask, why me? Why am I in this position? Or does that not cross your mind?
In the moment, no. After it, you kind of sit there and you wonder, like, how the hell did I get involved in that? I should have took one of the easy jobs.
Right.
Because it wears on you. I mean, there'd be plenty of nights where I just couldn't sleep. I mean, I just lay there. And sometimes you're contemplating the information that happened that day or what went on. You would be seeing you'd be obviously overseeing some other interrogators in case you were taking over for them. And you're just watching these things unfold. And when you stepped in, you started to see other people do it. You started to realize you like almost felt like I was losing my humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I literally felt like I was a monster. And, you know, when I got out after doing this for 8 years, it was a really, really tough struggle. Even to this day, I have to take medication to sleep, and I have to take anti-anxiety meds, or I have just straight panic attacks because of the mental toll it took on me.
Totally. And just the transition to civilian life after being in that setting, I would imagine, is so difficult.
Yeah, I actually moved to downtown New York because I wanted to be just hiding. Because I just felt like nobody could ever accept me if they knew the things that I had done. I know it may be weird to say, but you think the first thing after the war you're going to want to do is go have sex with a woman. That was the last thought on my mind.
Why's that?
You feel when you get out and now you're seeing reports that you didn't see before. You're just like, what kind of person would want me? It's almost like you've been degraded down to the level of who you were interrogating. And it took almost 2 years and before I ever even sought dating afterwards. And even my wife now, she knows what I did. She knows, you know, that was my job. And that came when she's like, why is there only pictures of you from boot camp and then nothing else? And so she doesn't like to hear about it, but we've had the conversation before I got married. I was like, listen, this is what I had to do. And she was very comforting and kind of put in perspective for me with, you know, if you don't follow your orders, you're going to military prison, period. That's what the brig is. It's a Marine-run military jail where you will serve out the rest of your enlistment for failing to follow an order.
Wow. So also, I was curious that, I mean, you were mentioning a bunch of these various different, you know, enhanced tactics. Like, did anyone ever accidentally get killed while being detained?
Officially, no. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
don't know what the follow-up question to that is.
That is, I mean, it is what it is. A lot of times things are listed as a suicide when this person had never made it back to their room. So you know, not all of them could take even the more advanced stuff. You know, you don't sleep for enough days, you start to hallucinate. You know, if you're sitting there using controlled fear, either dogs or being chained to a ceiling, collaring, which is where basically like it sounds, and I'm sure there's some of the listeners who have a fetish that want that collar, and no, you don't. It's a metal necklace with a chain, and you literally use it to shove them against the wall, and if they try to move free, it tightens up, and they almost choke themselves. Some of them did. Wow. Had they not been put in that position, I don't think they would have ended up dying. However, it was a suicide because of how it happened. You see where the tricky slope of that sits?
Right.
So, I mean, you can say no or you could say yes. It's all in how you're looking at it, man.
Man, it's, you know, it sounds like the worst kind of haunted house, honestly. And I say that because, you know, even though you are the one who has the control in that situation, you know, you're still living in that environment. You're creating the harshest environment possible, but you still have to show up there every day. And, you know, just, it's powerful hearing what you said before of, you know, almost just wanting to blend in or disappear, because, you know, it's true. I mean, there's, you know, a lot of people who do consider this, you know, monstrous and activities that never should have taken place. But, you know, I just want to thank you for kind of putting a little bit of humanity, you know, behind this too, because it's true. We see the reports, we see the images, you know, we know what has happened and hopefully learn from mistakes. But I don't know if, anyone really considers the people who are ordered to do this and, ordered truly in the sense of, do this or else.
And there is some fucked up people who like this job. Let's not get it twisted. There is some people who it bothers them none, but you literally live at the jail. So you in turn are in your own kind of prison. So I used to take it meal to meal. So this many hours till I get to eat. This many hours till I get to eat again. Okay, now I can sleep if I sleep. You just try to start looking for that silver lining. And I mean, in the beginning, everybody was. I mean, you could take any American and run them over there. They'd be like, let me at them. They done blew up our towers. And, we were gung-ho as we go. But as the years went by, it was, getting more and more, the Obama administration came in and it was, we're going to stop doing this. And the memos came down of make it happen. And you're like, wait, what? You never really, and I didn't know that till I got out. I thought it was, hey, this is how we're doing it. Because, again, the classification of a detainee doesn't give you protection of the Geneva Conventions at all in any which way. Thankfully, they have withdrawn a lot of it. There's been a lot of judiciary trials. There's been a lot of people held accountable for this. Donald Rumsfeld's a piece of shit. I'd like to, if I ever met him, I'd slap the shit out of him and just take whatever came. But he was, really the one poking this bear. He was, at the time, this State Secretary of Defense. And his name was on memos that you didn't have access to seeing, but you knew this is where it was coming from because they would mention the name. The Secretary of Defense says this. So, in hindsight, you're like, we got more out of these people when the eyes of the world were on us than we did when we were just in there blasting through it, acting like this was a bad piece of cattle. I mean, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that's what you were doing. And when that reality hits you, I knew it was time for me to get out. I was done. I finished my enlistment. I got out. I got my evaluations. I said, see you never. And that was the end of that.
So when you do get out and you sort of look back on it, like I said, all these reports come out and everything, do you look back on it like, do you think what you did was wrong? Or was it necessary, and is it still going on? Just, your personal opinion now that you're sort of detached from it, because I know in the moment you're just following orders and not really thinking about what's currently happening. You just have a job to do. But now looking back on it, like how do you view it? And do you think that there's a different way to go about it?
I think that knowing the information we got out of it would change the perspective of a lot of people. Some of the information that was obtained could only have been obtained this way. These people were that hardcore for it. Just like if you captured one of our U.S. military, we're taught my name, my social, do what you want. If they caught us, they were just going to behead us. They were doing it and putting it on TV. So, yes, I think it had its purpose for certain people. Do I think there's a better way? Most definitely. Do I think it still goes on? I'd hope not, but I'm pretty sure, depending on whom they capture, it will. And it's something that won't go away.
Yeah, and you mentioned before about it being unnecessary. So, you just said now there's certain individuals who you feel that this extreme level of interrogation and these tactics were necessary to get certain information. But do you think a majority of the information could have been obtained through different practices?
It could have been. It was just a matter of the timeline that you had for it. Mm-hmm. And some of them, maybe, and I'm only talking about a handful of people, probably not. You had to go that far. The rest, most likely, yes. You could have used just regular interrogation tactics, no matter how long it took. You know, a lot of these guys were little low-level soldiers. Some of them were very high-level people, and those were the ones who caught the worst of it. The low-level guys, you didn't really care. The high-level dudes, you needed to know whom, what, where, why, and when, so you can go on and capture that next person, because we were still wondering when was the next attack, what was going on. You know, there was constant suicide bombings. You never knew were they going to attack the prisons. So, I mean, the crunch for time and the pressure put on you to perform this, it worked for that one moment in time, that snippet of how they felt versus, you know, what was going on in the world. I think more studies should have been done than, you know, George Bush says we need to enhance this, and then boom, it's deployed the very next month.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you for, you know, shedding light on this and being so informative. And it's so easy to not talk about this. And, you know, like you mentioned that, you know, I'm sure it's not something you share with everyone that you meet. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are in your position who, you know, almost would rather not talk about these times. So, you know, it can't be easy. So thank you for, you know, kind of walking us through that and sharing your experience, because that's just not one that we hear.
You guys are probably the maybe 10th and 11th person I've ever spoken this to.
Oh, wow.
Ever.
Wow.
Wow.
That's how much I like Joe.
Thanks, man.
And Greg.
No, dude, we appreciate it. I mean, you know, all this is really intense stuff. And I mean, just to echo what we've been saying this whole time, like, it's definitely not easy to talk about. And this is definitely one of those topics where I appreciate your point of view more than anything, because it is sort of like both sides of the fence where you're like, I know this is wrong. And looking back on it, like, yeah, maybe we could have done it a different way. And people who aren't there, it's easy for them to say, like, you just don't treat humans this way. But then you're also, you know, on the other side, like, but there were some people who weren't going to give up this information, and we got information that saved thousands of lives. So it's like, is it worth it? Is it, you know, it's a question that may never be definitively answered. So I think it's a really cool perspective that you have also.
Yeah, I agree, because I fight with that all the time. You know, I don't think it's a question, but, you know, I think we're going to look back at that period of history, and this is going to get overlooked. You know, we're going to say, oh, well, we stopped Al-Qaeda, we caught bin Laden, we got Saddam. But these techniques are kind of just getting dusted off and ignored now. You don't hear about it anymore.
Right.
You know, that's how we work. Now all we care about is, please tell me I don't have the Rona. So, you know, to be able to come out and say what I know is public knowledge isn't to bring it back to the forefront of an argument. It's to just let people know, like, listen, we're people too. Yeah. And we had a job to do, and the safety of my family back home was paramount to me. And in turn, you come to like the country you're in, and you want to do what's best for those people as well.
No, yeah. Absolutely. And, you know, we thank you for that. And it's just a position of, you know, just a level of pressure that the average person will never have to deal with to be in a position like that. So thank you so much for, you know, sharing the perspective, sharing the details of that time. And, you know, it's good to hear that you've been moving on, and, you know, seems like everything's good now, hopefully.
Yeah, everything is good now. You know, I've been so far detached. I mean, we're talking over a decade ago, but it took me that long to be able to say it. So I hope, if anything, anybody who was in that position hears this and realizes, like, no, man, you're not a monster, because 22 veterans a day commit suicide, and that's a very serious cause. I mean, we do a great job of sending us to war, but when you get home, here's the money that you didn't spend while you were enlisted, and buy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if one person hears it and realizes, you know what, I was just doing my orders, It just takes time. Sometimes I had to talk it out loud. I wrote it down for the first time, was how I started to cope with it. Initially, I was drinking like it was free. I mean, I would drink a bottle of Jameson every night just to black out. And then I looked at all the bottles of liquor, and I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? You know, thankfully, I've been blessed with a high IQ, which I guess is why I was picked for that job. But, you know, there's light at the end of that tunnel. It's a long, arduous tunnel. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, you know, like I said, we appreciate you coming on and talking to us. You know, this is a wild episode. Like, it's been very interesting to hear this, and I feel like it's so unique that, you know, this could be one of the only places that you kind of get this perspective. So we really, really do appreciate you picking us in a way to come on and share your story.
Well, it's my honor. I really appreciate you guys having me. I've really wanted to tell my story for a while. I just didn't know how.
Well, thank you, man.
Thank you so much. I want to tell you guys about something that has honestly been changing my life recently. I'm talking about Headspace, which is a guided meditation app that helps promote mindfulness. And I'll be honest, I have a tough time sitting still, and meditation has been super difficult for me in the past, but Headspace has been a really different experience. It's easy to use, and you really need just 10 minutes. And it's helped me in a number of ways, from reducing daily stress, increasing focus at the beginning of my days, and the biggest thing for me has been using Headspace to improve my sleep. So I don't always fall asleep easily, which can be super stressful sometimes. But since using Headspace, I found it much easier, much more relaxing to kind of fall asleep at night by doing the guided meditation right before bed. And you deserve to feel happier, and Headspace is meditation made simple. So go to headspace.com/OPL. That's headspace.com/OPL for a free 1-month trial with access to Headspace's full library of meditations for every situation. That's a full month free. So really no reason to try this if you've been wanting to meditate. And this is the best deal offered right now. Head to headspace.com/OPL today.
That was one of the craziest things I think I've ever heard in my life. Like, I mean, you know what it is? It's like, you know, these things go on, but you don't really, like, hearing it from someone that's there. Like, you have your fantasies about it, and you, like, read about it, and you sort of know. But when someone who is there, who's participating, is telling you definitively, like, yes, these things are happening, and then also with some details thrown in there, it really is a wild thing to hear.
Yeah, and you also just hear it from such a politicized angle all the time, and it's so easy, you know, for us as the masses to form our opinions, and, you know, rightfully so. But yeah, like you said, just to put a human being in that position, someone who, you know, like you said, is not a monster. Did he do things that a lot of people will consider monstrous? Yes, but does that make him a monster? You know, at the end of the day, should he be branded as that for his life? Does it make him, you know, a bad person? And, you know, it's to hear this perspective, you know, really, I think could change a lot of people's opinions, or, you know, initial answer to that question.
No, 100%. And that's what I was getting at, was that, you know, it's not coming from a political point of view. It's not coming from anything other than experience of being like, I know it's bad, and, like, I couldn't sleep, and it fucks me up to this day to a certain extent. And, you know, I got out as soon as I could. But also at the same time, like, we saved lives doing that. And maybe we could have gone, like, a little softer on some people, but there was that sense of urgency to get these things out. And, you know, obviously at the end of the day, these things are inhumane to do to people, you know, like, you don't treat people that way, obviously, but also at the same time, if you can save 1,000 lives, is it worth it to cross the line?
Yeah, man, it's a paradox, and it's true. And like he said, there was almost no time to think about it. You know, there's no time to draw this up. It was just, just roll this out, just get the answers, save lives. We don't know what's coming next. Our country just got attacked for the first time in, decades, like on our soil. So yeah, but also, damn, these tactics are...
But what?
These tactics...
Yeah.
...are terrifying to hear about. To me, too, like, the psychological warfare aspect that they implemented is...
The strobe lights and then not sleeping.
Just so unimaginable. Yeah. It's
Dude.
Crazy.
And also, like, we're just, like, hearing about it. Like, it was probably even worse than we could even picture.
For sure. Oh,
man. And the pictures that we did see from, like, Guantanamo Bay were pretty intense, So I can only imagine on the day-to-day, like, what's going on with these, high-profile people. Like, oh, God. It's just, it's wild, man. And it's hard to think about. And I almost don't blame anyone for whatever opinion they have about it, because I see both sides. And both sides, like, have a point, but like, that's the thing. I think the right answer is that both sides have a point. At least in my eyes, there's pros and cons of both sides. And it's like, which one outweighs the other is, like, kind of up in the air.
Yeah, no, for sure. And for him as a guest, he's not even necessarily thinking that way. It's just, he was in the military. He carried out his orders. In hindsight, he wishes it wasn't the way that it was, but he's still a person, and that's really all it comes down to. So
yeah, man,
wow.
I mean,
conversation I never thought I'd have.
Huh?
So that's a conversation I never thought I'd had.
No, I know. It's just wild where the show has, like, gone to this. This just felt so, I don't know why, but this conversation just felt so much different than any other. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I was just given secrets, and now, like, I've peeked into something, and, it was just, that was a wild ride. And, I mean, look,
because all we could do is listen to that,
Yeah.
There's we're not equipped to...
I have no questions.
Judge this guy, or you've never even been remotely close to, in his shoes. So just to sit back and hear this it's a lot. Wow. All right.
Yeah. I mean, we just thank him for his service, obviously. Great dude. But for anyone out there who has a story or something they think will fit for the show, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Go to oplshow.com, send us an email, and we'll schedule something out with you.
Yes, follow us on Instagram at OPL Podcast. And as Joe mentioned in the beginning, it's you can become a patron at patreon.com/OPL Show. Got a ton of bonus episodes there, a Discord chat where we bring in the guests that we speak to so that you can ask your own questions. Awesome community there to be part of. And that is all.
That's all. See you guys next time.